Hello and welcome to our August Dialogue. My name is Tom Dennis and I'm the CEO of Serenity and Leadership. I'd like now to introduce our guest speaker, Stephen Witten. Stephen is the founder of Men Able. It's a global movement for mental health support in the automotive sector. After a successful career of over 35 years in the industry, covering numerous roles from salesman to executive director, he is a renowned authority on employee well-being. He's a passionate speaker whose pragmatic and insightful approach has inspired many, many people in audiences across the world. Men Able was created on the back of Stephen's own struggles with a clear purpose and mission to change cultures in male-dominated and performance-driven businesses, enabling the mental health stigma to be removed. And I'll just say that, that's Stephen's sort of standard introduction, but I really am delighted to see him here today. He's had an extraordinarily difficult journey over the last year, and it's great to have him here. Stephen, the stage is yours.
Yeah, as Tom rightly said, I am the founder of Men Able. It's an organization that spans across the automotive industry, which globally is immense. It's huge. Quite frankly, without the automotive industry, the world would come to a standstill because it's so important across everything that touches everyone, really. So, and we have our issues, and I've been in and around it for 35 years. And my view really around the whole mental health and well-being thing is that this needs a seat of its own in the boardroom. This is not something to offset to HR or to the well-being team or to training. This sits with the CEO, the chief execs, the CVO, the CTO, everyone else in the C-suite, and MDs downwards. And it really should be a top-down thing that's taken on board by businesses. So that's what I want to share with you today in terms of those thoughts around that. I think we'd all agree that 2020 in particular, and actually a good portion of this year as well, has been quite reflective. You know, for many people, it's been an opportunity to sit back and think, well, what is life really all about? And you've got to argue that actually life is probably conceivably better than it's ever been. We've got more at our disposal. We've got more opportunity out there, and we certainly don't lack technology or anything that makes life easier day to day. So why is it then that there are more people feeling hopeless, more people that are depressed, more people that are alone or feeling empty? And why is it that there is this sort of strong feeling of being overwhelmed and not having a sense of purpose across lives in general, not just in business? And I have to say that where my journey has taken me is realizing that, you know, that's what I needed to find in my own life. If we had a bit longer, I would tell you the full story of Men Able and how that came about. But in short, 10 years ago, March 2009, I'm standing on a railway platform at Milton Keynes Station where I live, and they have some fast trains coming through there. And the announcer said, please stand well back as the next train at platform 4 doesn't stop here. And in that moment, my thoughts went to, this could be it. I see the appeal of a fast moving train. Within a second, my thoughts then went to the driver, the 100 people on the platform, the police and ambulance services, and all of my family who would then be questioning for the rest of their lives what was going through his mind that made him do that. And all of that happened in a nanosecond that stopped me in my tracks, literally, and made me start to think, this isn't me. This is not me. This is not the person who I am. And it started really a 10-year journey of thinking about, well, what is my purpose? What am I here for? I've done the societal expectation of getting married, having kids, having a mortgage, contributing to the environment and to the economy and to the progression of mankind and all of that stuff. But now I was feeling a bit lacking in purpose. And so that 10-year journey continued. My world has been the car industry. It's been the automotive sector. I've run a dealership. There's me at the top there, handing over a vehicle, brand new car, to a young lad called Tobias, who actually had been having some fairly severe cancer treatment at the time, and he wanted to spend his money on getting a brand new car, and his parents supported that, and they came to me, and we wanted to make sure that we looked after him. And that was one of the pivotal moments for me at the end of a 35-year career that started probably 3 stone ago, as you can see from the picture down at the bottom right, that also resulted in me having a wife, 2 kids, 9 jobs along the way, including some time in self-employment. And so pressure was my middle name. Stress and anxiety and pressure to get the job done was what I carried with me every single day. But a turning point in this picture at the top with me handing that car over to Tobias was the following day getting a phone call from my boss to say, "Why did you do that deal? It lost 200 quid. And he wouldn't listen to my explanation that the lad was very much involved with the Youth Cancer Trust, and that the PR that came from it could be immense. He wasn't interested. All he was interested in was that we'd lost £200 on that car. And that also then made me start thinking, there's other stuff going on here, and I need to be really properly aligned with what's my purpose, because my purpose is not to work in a transactional business and pump cars out left, right, and center every day. So what I did was began a process of building around me an invisible wall, a protective cloak that I call ego. And ego, we often think about that thing that causes you to buy the house you're in, drive the car you drive, wear what you wear, buy into brands, and so on. But actually, ego is a fairly well-known protective mechanism for us as individuals. And it's something that many people are very, and me in particular, was very well practiced at kind of shielding myself in as a way of really sort of being the person that I was. Put me on stage with a microphone in front of me, and I would have people saying to me at the end of the day, "Wow, you're so confident, you're so passionate. You know, I wouldn't want to do what you do, stand up in front of an audience." And the reality of it was, that's a front, that's a mask, because the real person was the person who was sitting, feeling lonely, abandoned, and rejected in a room, all on my own. So, to cut a very, very long story short, and the creation of MenAble was actually this time, well, a bit more than this time last year, sitting in my garden thinking about the opportunities in front of me. And when the whole thing fell apart, my life really crumbled in terms of the lid falling off of my own issues, and my family not reacting in the way that I expected. And they then, you know, we went down the route of that's ended in divorce and separation and breakup and sale of the house and all of that. And so it made me really stop again and think, well, there's 2 roads here, the road of hope and the road of despair. And both of them lead to the same destination, but the road of despair is probably likely to get you there a bit quicker. So I chose the road of hope, and that was where MenAble was born and created. And I then went out to the industry that I love and I'm passionate about, and started talking to some of my good connections across that industry who are in the main very senior people, and started to say, am I the only person of a certain age across this industry that suffered with mental health and has kept a lid on it? Am I the only one that's built this ego around me and it's all about what car I drive and what I wear? Am I the only one that stopped, you know, having a properly fruitful life because of the voice in my head and what's going on in my own mental health? And was absolutely blown away by the amount of them who came forward and said, no, you're not alone. It's rife. It's absolutely across every business. It's across every part of the industry. And so now what we're working on is awareness, education, and prevention around that. And we work on a scale of 1 to 10, that we say, well, everyone's got mental health. If somebody walked into a business with their arm in a sling or a cast on their leg, you'd have a conversation about it. But just because mental health can't be seen doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And let's not wait till it gets to an 8 or a 9 before we deal with it, because that's the crisis point. And so what I'm seeing across our industry in particular, and also other industries where I'm studying this, is that what we're doing is we're putting a lot of emphasis on injury management. We're putting emphasis on triaging mental health crises when they arrive. And that's all very good and that's great. But in the industry that I've been in, my problem was that I was a 1 to 7 on a scale that was going up or down depending on what was happening for me. I never got to 8 or 9, apart from that time on the platform that day, and also a couple of times during the course of the last 18 months. And that suggests to me that what the industry that I'm in, and then I look around other industries and see it happening there, what that industry wasn't doing was it wasn't preparing to take care of my psychological safety and my psychological needs. It was ready to step in when I had a crisis. But what if I was that typical man of a certain age that doesn't talk about it, doesn't want to open up, doesn't want to share my thoughts and feelings, doesn't want to be honest and open and authentic, because actually I'm worried about what other people are going to think. I'm worried about what the industry is going to judge me as and what that's going to do to my career and my progression and everything that goes with that. So that's what caused me to keep a lid on it. So now we're talking to leaders and we're saying, so if that's the case, if that's the culture in your business, if that's what's happening across your business, don't bring in mental health first aiders, because that's great and it's a fantastic initiative, but it doesn't do the job. Because what if your mental health first aider is off that day when I have my crisis? This is you're the CEO of the business, it's your responsibility. If you're an MD of a business, it's your responsibility. If you're a manager of a business, your job is not to manage process, your job is to manage people. And therefore it's your responsibility, because every single one of us is on this scale of 1 through to 10. So let's not just do what we need to do to put stuff in place for 8, 9 or 10. Let's make sure that we deal with the stuff that's 1 through to 7. And that's why we believe that well-being and health, and mental health in particular, needs to have a seat in the boardroom and be properly bought into by everyone that's at the most senior levels. Now, in our industry alone, some scary numbers. Relate this to your own industry, and if you want, but I'm just talking here about the automotive sector. Just short of 1 million people that work in that sector. And if the World Health Organization is correct that 1 in 4 report a mental health issue at any one time, that's 216,000 people right now in the automotive sector suffering with their mental health. If the suicide rate is 17 in 100,000, that's potentially 146 colleagues in the next year could take their own life. Now, with the average car dealership, if any of you have bought a car at any point in the last couple of years, you may have gone into a car dealership, and you'll see that if it's a really big dealership, it could have anywhere in the region of 70 or 80 staff working in that business. So that's potentially 2 entire businesses of people that could be considering taking their life. And my argument is, if you're a CEO, you need to take this seriously, because if you put all those 146 people into an aeroplane and it crashed, you would certainly have an inquiry and find out what went wrong. So why are we not doing this every day with our people and not sitting back and saying, well, it's okay, we've ticked the box, we've got mental health first aiders. Well, that's great, but I've never felt the need to actually sit and talk to Sally on reception and say, I'm really struggling with my mental health, can you help me? Because actually my mental health has hovered through 1 through to 7 for 20 years. It does not mean that I'm suddenly going to have a crisis and feel safe at work and open up about stuff. So we really need to make sure that this stuff sits at the boardroom level. And when we do that, what's then at the core of this in organizations? And I'm fresh from a workshop that I ran yesterday, and the resounding thing that came out of this particular board of management, this particular group of CEOs that I had together, was that there's one key thing that the organization needs to communicate that people don't feel clear on, and it's their purpose. In the business that I worked in that sold cars, our purpose was sell cars, make money, keep the shareholders happy. Is it any wonder that that business wasn't fulfilling for me? That wasn't hitting my psychological needs, because they put profit before people. They didn't care how we got there. They just wanted us to sell cars. In our movement, we have another organization based up in Scotland, a massive company, really good company. And the head of that business is a 35-year-old entrepreneur. And his purpose for that business is, we make money so we can give it away. And that's very clear throughout the entire business, that everyone then says, I know exactly what my role is in that business. I can earn a lot of money, I can earn commission, but I know that actually ultimately the purpose of this business is to give money away to other people who need it more. And that's what we're on a mission to do now, is to say to CEOs and leaders of businesses, what's the purpose of your business? What does that look like? And more importantly, if I went around your organization and asked each and every person, what is the purpose of your business? What clear answer would they give me? The three biggest things that actually hold people back as well are, according to Simon Bartlett recently on a LinkedIn post, lack of freedom to be creative or flexible. I link that back to, well, the lack of freedom coming because I don't have a clear idea of what purpose is. Poor communication. People often read more into what leaders don't say than what they do say. And again, that comes back to what's the purpose of the business. And looking around us and seeing that there are people who are being let off, getting away with stuff, not removing a particular insert, whatever descriptive word you would use for those colleagues in there, colleague or manager fast enough who's not performing. Everyone else can see it, but it's not happening. And again, that links back to purpose. It links back to how clear is it in our organization. And that is why well-being sits in the boardroom, because that's their responsibility. Bring that down to the individuals, and what we see on a daily basis is people, and you'll probably know people like this in your organization, that work on any of these four levels. Victim, these are the people that it's, oh, how are you today? Oh, same rubbish, different day. Oh yeah, just same old, same old. People who are in victim, the world is acting on them. The world is working on them. Move that up a gear. And sometimes when people become managers, they feel that they can now be a controller of that, and they can start trying to push and cajole people's opinions and thoughts and beliefs. Both of those behavioral states, those levels of consciousness, are in a fear-based, are on a sort of fear basis, if you like. And that also then can be spotted by people like me and Tom, who do the sort of work that we do, and one or two others as well. Sue, who I know is on here as well. We can spot that a mile off when we go into organizations, because you can see who are the victims and who are the controllers. And our mission is to say, look, you can go into Discoverer, because at Discoverer, that's where the world of possibilities start to open up, and you can start to see where your purpose is lacking across your business, and you start looking for opportunities. Get into Change Agent, that's a whole new conversation and transcends everything. But isn't that an amazing feeling when you look at that and think controller and victim is fear-based, Discoverer and Change Agent is love-based? And we're stuck in the English language because we only have one word for love. You see the word love there and you immediately probably think of the same thing. But if you think of the word love and think of the many connotations that it has, put that into a business and it suddenly transcends it to something completely different. So purpose then, in Emily Esfahani-Smith's book, a book about meaning, she talks about purpose. It's what you give and how you serve. It's the why that drives you. What is it that you're actually doing? What is the service that you do? We were all born to serve. The problem is most people don't realize why. And it's through service that you find joy and abundance. So if you're a leader of a business, let's not put things in place that manage those issues when mental health problems come up. Let's just make it in the same way that we do with physical health and safety. It's not about putting banisters up or putting high-vis jackets on the back of people's chairs to let them know who's the fire warden. This is about giving people a sense of purpose so that they know what the why is that drives them. And out of that will fall everything you do around training, recruitment, management, competence within your business, the way people feel, everything. That then gives people a sense of belonging. And on the back of that, that's where love comes in, and the ability to forgive and work closer together. Now, this sounds very spiritual, and I make no apologies for that, because through this process, what I've managed to find is that I knew I had a reasonable level of emotional intelligence. Compared to my peers at the rather rough school that I went to in North London, I had a reasonably good level of intellectual intelligence. But what I've learned through all of this is spiritual intelligence. And that, again, takes you to a completely different level. And it gives you, put all of that together, gives you a sense of self, and that you're working on something, that this is bigger. And again, I would say, if well-being and health is at the boardroom level within a business. This is about transcending all of that. And then the key bit is it's through people like us and through working with people like you that actually we can help change the narrative. We can help change the story that we've all been telling ourselves. And the automotive industry is one of the worst places that needs this, because, you know, people in that industry carry job changing as a bit of a badge of honor. Where have you worked through your career? Oh, I've worked in 9 jobs and I've done this, 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 and this. Oh, wow, you must be good if you've moved around a lot. Because actually what we need to do is rewrite that narrative and say, well, if that's the case, that's fine. But actually for most people, it doesn't work. So I'm going to ask you now to do a little bit of I'm going to go quiet for maybe 30 seconds or a minute and ask you individually to grab a piece of paper and a pen and just quickly jot down as a snapshot of your culture, each area for your business that you work in, your own, whether it's your own business, you can pick a client if you're a consultant, but the business that you work in, and I know Gemma's on here as well from Nuneaton College, so you might want to think about this for either from your own particular department or from the wider business. Let's have a quick look. Out of 5, mark each of those areas for management commitment, communication, training, recruitment, and purpose. Okay, I didn't time that particularly, but what I should have said at the beginning was don't overthink it. Don't try and sort of analyze it. Just put a gut feel. If your gut feel is something's at a 1 or a 2 or 3 or whatever it is, then put that, because that's probably accurate and probably right. It's not for you to actually go and fix it. It's for you to get a sense of where are you actually at, because my objective and Tom's objective for this session was not to, sell MenAble or anything like that. But if we can inspire any one of you to think, yeah, we need a version of that in our business. And actually, if I'm on the board, then I am high enough in the organization to be able to properly affect this and say, yeah, this is a board level responsibility. The board cannot any longer say, what do we do about health and well-being? Oh, we've implemented an employee, an EPA, an employee assistance program. We can't no longer say that we've appointed mental health first aiders. This sits with the board and it is their responsibility, and it absolutely should be. And that is about putting people before profit. And why should we do that? Well, it's quite simple, because actually there's lots of proof, and there's lots of proof in the work that we do, that positive employee outcomes equal positive customer outcomes, which actually in the end equals positive business outcomes. So thank you very much. I'm Steve Whitten. Please stay in touch. We'd love to be in touch with any of you. My LinkedIn address is there. I'm all over that, as many of you will probably already know if we're connected, that I'm pretty much on there prolifically every day. So please feel free to connect, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
And thank you, Steve. It's funny, I wasn't quite sure where you were going to go with your talk, but purpose is just so important. And I've been doing a thought for the week, which I put out on the website and on LinkedIn. The thought for the week this week is on purpose.
Thank you. If it's okay, I will have to move away from the screen slightly when you said thank you for our organization, because that's my purpose. That's what that's what I'm here for. I have some strong Christian friends who believe that there's a reason why, and I've got someone or something sitting on my shoulder that's driving this. I don't talk about that a massive amount, because that's not for me to impose or believe on anyone else. But the reality for me is exactly everything that you've just said. And if I think about our industry as a male-dominated industry, and it's not the only one, it actually becomes a toxic environment for women to be in, because there is an expectation that women are going to be strong, tough, aggressive, competitive, and I know this happens in environment as well, for females going into that sector as well. And as a result, that this is where we end up with a diversity and inclusion problem, because we burn people that come in the car industry in particular. We've had a legacy of employing people in our own likeness, And the reason for that is that a lot of managers have been promoted on the basis of confidence, not competence. And therefore, what we end up with is people, when it comes to recruiting new people, they recruit the safe bet. And the safe bet is someone who looks, sounds, acts, and has been where I've been. And that is not out in a motor trade setting, and maybe in construction, and maybe in legal, or wherever it might be. That is not, or hasn't traditionally been, taking on board somebody who sits outside of that picture of the world, that map of the world, because the problem with that is that's risky for then for me as a manager, and I've got here by my confidence, not by my competence. So therefore, what I'm going to do is put my own head above the parapet, and I'm going to cause me to be the center of attention if that decision goes wrong. And so that's why I don't know if I mentioned, but I've joined the IMI, the Institute of the Motor Industry's Diversity and Inclusion task force recently, and I'm proud to be one of a number of white middle-aged guys to sort this problem out. And that's the reality of what we've got in this task force, because that's what exists in the industry. So thank you, Stacey. I genuinely do want to connect with as many of you as possible. I know some of you have sent me connection requests already, and keep the conversation going afterwards.
We are pretty much at the end. Do you want to just say any final words?
I'll just say thank you to everyone for getting stuck in and contributing in the way that you have, and the whole spiritual awakening purpose thing. It's important to me. I'm really passionate about it, as you can tell, and I think a lot of what we see in organizations where this is not happening is because of fear and because of ego, and even at the highest levels, the people at the tops of organizations are struggling with their own issues, and that's what's causing us to not see this sense of purpose and this sense of direction that people crying out for. So for me, it's top down but driven bottom up, and if we start doing that, all we then need to work on is the bit in the middle that's constricting it, which might actually be middle management and stuff. Yeah, we're on a mission, and connect up with me on LinkedIn or whatever, and we'll keep talking. Thank you, Tom, as well, for letting me to have the stage for a bit. Thank you.
Well, it is a very important message, and of course we are very aligned, you and I, Steve. Mm-hmm. So I hope we can find a way to join forces in some respect.
And I would just say on that, actually, that when you and I first spoke, which was early, just before Christmas Eve, yeah. 8 months ago, yeah. And we weren't aligned, were we? Because I think you came back to me a few times and said, I'm not quite sure what the message is. Yeah. And it's like it's been a journey throughout, lockdown, January to March, and then we got back. We had a couple of conversations, and we had one in, I think it was June time, and I sort of talked about it, and you sat back and you went, wow, I think your actual words were, where the bloody hell did that come from? Or something like that. So
well, I'm glad I trusted myself and trusted you, because you weren't ready then, and you really are now, and you're flying, and that's great.
Thank you. Thank you. It really means a lot. Thank you. Thank you all for being part of that. I'm going to go off and have a sob now. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We just need more of you, please.
Oh, thank you, Gemma. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much, Steve. Brilliant.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Come back in September, and hopefully we'll see you then.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much.